Overwatch is a game of heroes, hope, honor, rising to the challenge of doing the right thing. But sifting through the lore, there are also a lot of troubling realizations about this world of Blizzard's. Terrible truths hinted at. Downright terrifying realities mentioned offhand. Often, fan headcanons and theories run less on grounded facts and more on vague inklings and hopes. Sorry, shippers. Collected by our friend at Toad King Studios, we here at Leaderboard are bringing you Overwatch's unsolved mystery straight from the game's lore and canon. Hi, I'm Kyle Stover, and this is the part where I say the tagline to the intro clip. Number 1. Let's talk about the 500-pound gorilla in the room, shall we? And yes, we are talking about Winston. Apparently, the humans of this world never saw the old cinema classic Rise of the Planet of the Apes starring James Franco. That, or they decided that one uprising of subservient sentient beings simply wasn't enough. At least this time, they thought ahead and started this one off-planet. The Horizon Lunar Colony was, as in past tense, home to a team of super scientists and several genetically enhanced gorillas. At an early age, Winston was a standout, having noted rapid brain development, which led to him being taken under the wing by human scientist Dr. Harold Winston. I'm sure that being given special attention for being smarter than all the rest of the dumber genetically altered gorillas had nothing to do with the peaceful protests and civil disobedience that came to pass on the colony. The other gorillas would eventually sit the scientists down and have a nice chat before leading a bloody uprising to claim the colony as their own. With most of the gorillas busy killing scientists, Winston used his intelligence to build his own spacecraft and escape to Earth. Now jumping to present day in the timeline, while Winston's been down here on Earth overwatching with his new buds, there's been a violent society of genetically enhanced intelligent gorillas who have claimed mankind's first established step towards space exploration as their own. With everything else going on in the world, it was probably easy for the problem to be out of sight and out of mind. But likely, they are still up there. Blizzard only recently touched upon this again, the first time being Winston's backstory on playoverwatch.com, with the latest news being the last log from the lunar colony. Between that, only brief interactions between a young Winston and Dr. Winston were seen in the recall flashbacks before the uprising. We may soon see something from this though, such as a comic or a future in-game event like the OMNIC-themed uprising. The character Hammond could be a boss-like enemy or even a new playable character. An army of intelligent, raging killer gorillas from space bitter against mankind and the scientist's favorite gorilla, or Winston could have a bone to pick with them himself over the death of his beloved father figure, Dr. Winston. I guess we'll have to see what's on the horizon. Number 2. Old robot soldiers never die. Next on the conveyor belt is Bastion, a type of Omnic produced in mass by god AIs bent on war with mankind. Our specific Bastion, the one we all know and love to hate, was left in a state of disrepair for several years before reawakening. From the short The Last Bastion, we know that it comes back online seemingly on its own, with little to no recollection of its former function. That is, until violent flashbacks and PTSD-like episodes reveal the machine of war from Bastion's past. These violent and sudden outbursts are eventually repressed, and we see Bastion wander off to live a simpler, peaceful life with his new bird friends. That would be fine and dandy in a Disney-esque ending, if this was the end of Bastion's story. In the comics, Bastion meets Torbjorn, who is last seen leading the robot away from trouble. Except, where does Bastion end up time and time again after that? Defending a point or pushing a payload? Bastion is still fighting, still laying down streams of bullets, still racking up those eliminations just like in the old days. Seems old habits die even harder than the original members of the Overwatch strike team. Am I right, Reinhardt? This guy gets it. The life of peace with the bird and cute beeping didn't last long. After all that wandering around the wilderness, it seems to have found itself attached to a band of vigilantes. Once a soldier, always a soldier, or I guess rather a high-powered peacekeeping machine. Maybe in a world that moved on without it, Bastion found their place was still on the battlefield. It may just be a victim of its core combat programming, which is prone to kick in whenever threats are detected. Regardless, that Gatling gun is far from gentle or harmless. Torbjorn, Zarya, and Reinhardt might have some good reasons for disliking OMNICs. More so with OMNICs that look like the ones that killed their friends, ones that most likely did kill allies in the war. Bastion may very well be far from peace-loving. Number 3, everyone's favorite purple sniper lady. Now to look at some more human implications, and possibly the darkest one on our list, Widowmaker was once a normal woman, Amelie, married to a high-ranking Overwatch operative. She had a name, felt emotions, had normal skin, and had hobbies that didn't involve taking down targets at over 50 meters away. That all ended when she was kidnapped by the terrorist organization Talon and brainwashed to be a sleeper agent to kill her beloved husband. They broke her will, reprogrammed her personality, and made it impossible for her to do anything but complete her mission. So yeah, apparently brainwashing exists in the Overwatch world. This woman was turned into a living weapon and set to kill her husband in his sleep. After that, Talon took her in, giving her more extensive training, programming, and altercations that left her skin purple and her emotional landscape a frozen void. She became their #1 assassin, taking the lives of the targets Talon wants dead. This is some Winter Soldier level rewriting of a person. This is tragic. This is terrifying. This is some dark shit here, Blizzard. I'm sorry, but you guys wrote this. This is literally just her backstory we're talking about here. Amelie as a person exists no more. Only Widowmaker remains. She's still running around with the organization who brainwashed her and destroyed her life. Is any part of Amelie still left in there? On top of brainwashing, we know they altered her physiology to better suit their assassin needs. Other Talon agents such as Reaper and Sombra have extensive body modifications as well. While those may have been before they joined Talon, it's clear Talon is willing to subjugate people to whatever extreme means they need to meet their goals. Number 4, all my friends are dead. An undeniable fact of the Overwatch world is that the OMNIC uprising rocked civilization and threatened life as we know it. While the exact death count and timeline are a little unclear still, we know millions died at the hands of OMNICs. More died in riots and the chaos that erupted from a world at war. No country was spared, and likely no families survived unharmed. A few Overwatch characters are orphans, with more having lost friends during the crisis. Plenty bear physical scars and have lost limbs directly related to the violence of this time. Less explored is the topic of how this has left the population mental health-wise. With so much death and destruction to be found, it is not unlikely that many would suffer from various psychological illnesses and disorders. War brings out the worst in people, and though Overwatch brought out the best in some, it's clear there were many who did not rise above. An entire generation was raised during the OMNIC crisis, taught to fear OMNICs, whether through propaganda or just from endless news of the war raging across the globe. This has the makings to create greater generational gaps than ever before in history. You have the oldest generation that grew up in the golden age of technology, filled with so much hope for the future before their own creations turned against them and nearly brought mankind to its knees. Then there's the Overwatch generation, who grew up fearing OMNICs and looking up to the heroes of Overwatch. With figures like Jack Morrison, Lena Oxton, and Reinhard Wilhelm to look up to, these wartime heroes became celebrities, if not legends. Lastly, the most recent generation to come up has finally only known peace. OMNICs and humans are protesting for OMNIC rights, the Shambali monks are international celebrities, and most countries are working to leave the war behind. Organizations like Overwatch were deemed unnecessary and crude. The rifts between these generations and their outlooks might be the source of the great social turmoil that brought even the mighty Overwatch to its knees in peace times. Number 5, One Planet Medium Well Done coming up. Stepping back to look from the problems the population of the world face, there somehow is an even greater threat taking place in the background. Seems even in the far future of 2070, climate change is still an issue no one knows exactly what to do about. All of the advancements of technology and the rapid growth of OMNIC populations definitely didn't help, though the true cause for several unexplained weather phenomenons remains unknown. At its peak, Overwatch established eco-watch points around the world to research and monitor critical locations. Watchpoint Antarctica is noted as the facility May was stationed at when it was hit by a catastrophic polar storm that cut them off from the outside world and stranded the scientists. Tragically, of the team, only May survived, waking up from cryo sleep several years later. By then, Overwatch was no more, and the other eco-watch points were abandoned and in similar disrepair, with much of their data lost. To make matters worse, the climate issues had only gone downhill over the years. Guess when you've got all of civilization to repair, worrying about the weather kinda takes a back seat. Whether May can uncover any information that will help reverse the damage done or not is yet
yet to be explored. In a world of OMNICs, God AI, cities made from hard light and flying cars, one can only hope the Earth's population can come together to solve a problem bigger than everyone. Number 6. Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey, blimey. Bloody flipping time travel. Tracer's ability set and backstory are all focused on her time-related powers, the origin of which comes from her time as a pilot in Overwatch's experimental flight program, testing their new teleporting fighter, the Slipstream. Still in prototype at the time, the aircraft malfunctioned and disappeared entirely, Lena Oxton and all. She would of course reappear though, not until months later. Her molecules had been desynchronized from the flow of time and she now suffered from a newly coined chronal dissociation disorder. Disappearing and reappearing hours or days later, she was unable to hold it together on her own. It wasn't until Winston, our friendly gorilla, designed the chronal accelerator to anchor her to the present, and as a side note, give her control over her own time. She could now speed up and slow down her time at will, as well as picked up some unique aging properties. With all the backstory out of the way, we can once again get down to the point here. That time travel is apparently real in this world. I know robot people and hover cars are already pushing the sci-fi up to 10, but this pushes it to 11. Space-time has been tampered with. While Overwatch might not have pursued the Slipstream fighter prototype further, it's very possible that the technology is still out there even with the organization's disbandment. Experimental tech is rarely discarded due to a failed prototype testing, more so if the lost pilot is recovered alive later on. Now with a time anomaly related disorder, all the more so when a super gorilla from the moon figures out a way to give her control over her own timeline. The idea of this technology existing is scary enough. Let's hope no paradoxes enter the mix either. But the thought of it being picked up by any number of organizations in the Overwatch world is beyond frightening. Talon, Null Sector, even the Vishkar Corporation, much less any rogue OMNICs or God AIs could potentially get their hands on it. The very fabric of time and space could be at risk. History undone, the humanity of it all. Oh well, at least Tracer seems fairly chipper about it. Number 7. Death is whimsical today. The number of Overwatch operatives who were thought to be dead but came back is too damn high. And while most of the team have their reasons for coming back after everyone thought they were dead, death does seem to stick less in this world. While Jeff Kaplan has gone on record to say that not everything in multiplayer is set in the lore, such as Reaper Soul Orbs being just a gameplay mechanic, there are still a lot of examples of high-tech healing capabilities. Soldier 76 has his biotic field, Ana her biotic rifle, Zenyatta his Orb of Harmony, Roadhog his self-healing canisters. The list goes on with plenty of examples of extreme healing technology. This in and of itself might sound like a good thing, a humanitarian dream even. A question to consider, how readily available is this technology? Could this tech still be experimental, limited to government military groups? It very well might be extremely expensive, limited to the wealthy and those with connections or high-risk occupations. The ability to bring people back from near-fatal wounds in record time changes the face of medicine and health around the world. Could the future of the Overwatch world see populations who no longer die from natural causes? In life, there is a natural order to things, something even Zenyatta knows, but this could very well cause an unbalance in the world down the road. It's doubtful we'll ever see Blizzard really touch upon the idea, but it's still a part of what we've laid out for the Overwatch universe. A world of people who live longer lives is one thing. A world of people living onwards past natural limits is another. Add in the OMNICs, cyborgs like Genji, and you have a world filled with near immortal beings. Number 8. How I learned to stop worrying and love the OMNIC. One of the biggest and darkest story elements at the heart of the Overwatch universe is the OMNIC Uprising. Spanning the globe, the violence of this war of machine against man left no country untouched, and the consequences from this are felt throughout the world still. Neville Chamberlain is quoted saying, "In war, whichever side may call itself the victor, there are no winners, but all are losers." While Overwatch did eventually end the OMNIC crisis, it wasn't without a long and drawn-out conflict and heavy losses. Though OMNICs have now been accepted as citizens in many forward-looking countries, the threat of a second OMNIC crisis now looms over the planet. God AI programs that were contained during the war have started to break free. The Overwatch comic mission statement saw the Anubis AI, a God program, become active again forcibly taking control of sentry bots and nearby OMNIC alike. Though a minor character in the comic, Okoro is a member of Farah's team and an OMNIC. It seems Okoro notices Anubis taking over their systems, and instead of turning against the team, pulls the trigger on itself. Although they are robots, death still has meaning to OMNICs, as they are shown to value life and suffer pain. It could come to light that the OMNICs were as much victims of the God programs as humankind was. Threats left over from the first OMNIC crisis are still around in modern Overwatch times. South Korea is attacked by a massive OMNIC monstrosity on a near yearly basis. Australia had an Omnium factory go nuclear due to local attacks, which left a great deal of the outback irradiated. On top of that, some strange entity seems to be pulling strings to assassinate important figures and work against the budding peace. All of this now without an officially sanctioned Overwatch organization to come in and save the day. So, there you have it. Sorry if we've darkened the world of Overwatch for you a little bit, but don't blame us. This isn't one of our conspiracy theory videos. This is all just directly from the Overwatch lore with a little bit of digging and further speculation. Leave us a comment on your favorite headcanon or lore bit below. Remember to hit the bell icon to subscribe to the leaderboard, as we have new videos dropping for you every week from your favorite video game series. I've been your host, Kyle Stover, and this has been Leaderboard's Darkest Implications of Overwatch.